What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the overall market, what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to talk about some very important zones to be watching for on Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'll break down some very important news that's coming out today, what earnings came out that are very important, and another very important piece of data that's coming out at 1 p.m. Eastern Time that could cause a very, very big move. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 13 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market. So, I just wanted to mention that the market's selling off a little bit during the pre-market, but one thing that you will notice on SPY is that we have this channel we've been stuck in over the last couple of days. We have this supply zone, which is where we tend to get rejected between 437.5 to 438.5. And then this is where we have tough resistance, which is where we reject most of the time when we come near this area. And then we have support at 433 to 432 is where we tend to see a lot of buyers stepping in to try to defend their positions. So as we're selling off, if we do break below 434, watch SPY re-enter this demand zone between 432 and 433 and see if buyers try to step in to push us back up. But if we lose 432, that's going to be a bearish signal, and that would cause this gap to get filled if we get some kind of bad piece of news. So, what news could be coming out that could cause downside or even upside, and what's going on with the market so far? Earnings have come out. ASML actually did relatively well. P&G did well. Morgan Stanley ended up beating on earnings. UBS beat, but some of these missed. I think Nasdaq ended up missing on growth. Uh, Ally Bank missed a little bit on growth as well. I think revenue was a little bit down. EPS was fine, and a couple of others were just kind of like decent, so kind of mixed. Some misses here and there, but for the most part, beats. All right, so more beats than misses, but it's kind of mixed overall, I would say. Besides that, later on today, we have Wednesday right here. After the market closes, we have Tesla, Netflix, Lam Research, Discover, and a bunch of other earnings later on for Wednesday, all coming out. Now, when it comes to economic data, I just want to call out something very important. So we have the mortgage data coming out, all the housing data is coming out already, and there's not really a whole lot else that's too crazy coming out except for the facts that we have some Fed speakers starting at about noon. We have Waller, Williams, and Bowman all giving their speeches alongside Page and Harker between noon and close. We have a bunch of them. And then there is one big piece of data coming out, and at 1 o'clock p.m., we have the 20-year bond auction. Now, the last time the 30-year bond auction came out hotter than expected, this caused yields to go up. And when yields went up, the stock market crashed. I'm sure you guys remember when this data came out, the market sank very hard. So we will see if this 20-year bond auction causes downside. So just be very careful at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. We will see if a big move is caused and make sure you're prepared for that just in case. Now, when it comes to news so far, they're saying so far the market isn't doing that much, especially futures so far. We saw President Joe Biden visit Israel. There's a lot of controversy with these wars, but that did happen. Moving forward, United Airlines has warned investors that its suspension of particular flights forced by the war is going to weigh on the bottom line on the current quarter. It's going to affect their earnings and etc. And real estate, it's scary these days, according to many home builders, because sentiment is falling to the lowest point in 10 months, and mortgage demand is continuing to fall to the lowest level since 1995. And once again, we're still going to be waiting to see what happens. I'm not going to talk too much about politics, but that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to be talking more about what's going on with the markets. So if you look at SPY, it is selling off a bit. So we're going to be watching this potentially sell off a bit more. But we're currently at 433. We have some nice support at 433. If that fails us, there's 432.5 and 432. This entire demand zone right here is where we could see buyers try to step in. Now, this is what could happen. Kind of like touch this and try to bounce again, or we just barely touched 433 and try to like bounce. But if we lose 432, then that's going to be a bearish signal. Then we're going to start sinking down towards 430 because that's where we have this gap. There's a gap like right here. So I'm kind of like circling it. That could end up getting filled if we lose 432. But for now, we do have a tendency of seeing buyers stepping in around 432 to 433 to push this thing back up. If we do push back up, look for a potential move all the way back up towards 435. If we break it, watch 436 to 436.5, then 437.5, and 438.5 as resistance. Now we have the toughest resistance at 437.5 to 438.5. We've gotten rejected here almost 3 to 4 times over the last 4 days. So the most likely possibility would be, as long as buyers step in at 432 to 433, we see SPY touch this zone and then kind of like bounce like this. And then once we get the bounce, we're going to be watching to see what happens with the auction data. So the 20-year bond auction at 1 p.m., if it's hotter than expected, this could cause a sell-off. So if it's a hot auctions report at 1 p.m., if we get an aggressive sell-off, we could see something like this where the market comes down to fill this gap all the way back down to 430. We get like a rug pull. So be very careful with that data coming out. Could be a very aggressive sell-off like last time. If the bond auction is decent, it could cause the market to try to pump all the way back up. So we're going to be waiting to see what happens with the bond auction. That's going to cause a very big move. You want to be just like very patient. But until then, it's very likely the market kind of just sinks and bounces approaching it. And then we'll see what happens with the auction coming out. As far as the QQQ goes, I just want to remind you all that we're basically very close to this 366 area. We just broke below it, so we could see this thing get very close to the 364s. There tends to be a lot of demand in this area, so what could end up playing out is similar to SPY, kind of like sinks a little bit more, and we get a balance, and we kind of push back up to 366 or so. Approaching the bond auction. And then once the auction comes out, once the data comes out, if we get an aggressive sell-off, we could see this thing sink like this. If not, if we don't get some kind of sell-off, we could see this just continue to push up depending on the bond to see what it looks like. So at 1 p.m., expect a very, very big move. We will see if it launches the market up or not. So be prepared for the bond auction that's coming out. That's what's basically going on for the QQQ. Now, watch and see if this thing could break. Watch 364 around that area is where we have demand. If we lose it, it's going to come down to 362.5. I'm sorry, 363.6 and then 362.5. If we end up bouncing very close to the 364s and come back up, watch 366 as resistance. If we break this, we have potential to go back up to 368. So watch those levels very carefully. And just remember, there's going to be a very big move at 1 p.m. when the bond auction comes out. For Nvda, we're looking a little bit more bearish this morning. I was calling this out yesterday, Nvda potentially sinking lower. Nvda is sinking. It's getting very close to this 425 area. We might see Nvda touch 425 again, then see some buyers try to defend it and try to push it back up towards 435. But we'll see what happens with the bond auction. That's going to cause a very big move later on. So Nvda could come down right here towards this 425 area, bounce just like this towards 435. And then we'll see if we get another aggressive sell-off. We will see if this sells off like this after we get to the bond auction, or when the bond auction comes out, could see this thing try to push up higher, like after on. So expect like a drop and a bounce first, then we'll see what the big move happens to be, if Nvda gets a big bounce or not. But the odds do favor the downside now because of what we saw from the previous bond auction. So we'll be very careful. And also based off the previous trend on Nvda, as we have a big head and shoulders. On Aapl, we're looking a little weaker right now. We're approaching this support right here around this 175 area. So there is a chance that Aapl kind of sinks a little bit lower towards this low, towards 175. Then we make an attempt to bounce towards 176.5. Then we make a big reaction after the bond auction. If the bond auction causes a rug pull, we could see Aapl sink towards 174. If we get a bounce, we could see this rebound like this. All right, so we're going to be watching that very carefully. And last but not least, for Tesla stock, I would say that Tesla is sinking just a little bit, but there's a chance it's going to get a little pop. As long as it establishes a higher low, as long as Tesla tries to hold above 250, we could see Tesla get another pop like this with the market, make an attempt to push it for at least 257. If we break into 260 is a possibility. As long as it tries to hold this 250 area, we could see potential for a bounce right before earnings. And then the bond auction is going to cause more volatility. If the bond ends up being hot, this could cause Tesla to come back down just like this. If it's a cool bond, if the bond isn't too bad, then we could see Tesla try to push back up towards this 260 area and then cool off. So we're going to be watching a little drop towards demand, which could be very close to 250, and a bounce on Tesla. And then we're going to be watching to see if Tesla could hold it. Now, if Tesla loses 250, that's going to be bearish. It's going to come back down to 247. So watch 247 as key support just in case. The odds don't favor Tesla crashing too hard or doing anything that insane. My gut tells me 250 could be tested, maybe a bounce after that. Hopefully buyers step in. If not, then 247 is going to be tested. That's like the more bearish case. So if it does end up breaking down like this, we could sink even lower. But I do expect some buyers to try to step in, try to push Tesla up. And I think that as long as it gets above 255, we could be looking for a move to 257.5 and then potentially even 260. But then don't forget there's going to be a big move at 1 p.m. depending on the bond auction. All right. Anyways, that's it for the video. Thank you all so much for listening. Get ready for that big move very, very soon. And I just wanted to warn you about it. It's going to be very interesting to witness. All right. Thank you again. Market to the moon because the long term is still very bright. And peace out.